welcome to this training video for the MER indicator for testing for recent HIV-1 infection. This presentation will consist of the following sections. Section 1 will provide an overview of the technical area and related indicators. Section 2 will describe indicator changes in MER 2.3. Section 3 will review the indicator's numerator, denominator, and disaggregation. Section 4 will provide an overview of guiding narrative questions. Section 5 will outline data quality considerations for reporting and analysis. And finally, Section 6 will list additional resources and acknowledgments. So let's get started. Section 1, overview of the technical area and related indicators. Rapid tests for recent infection distinguishes a recent HIV-1 infection from a long-term HIV-1 infection. A recent infection is an infection that was acquired within approximately the last 1 year. A new indicator has been created to capture the percentage of persons aged 15 years or older and newly diagnosed with HIV-1 infection who have a test for recent infection result of recent infection during the reporting period. This indicator falls under the testing program area group and has indicator code HTS_recent. HTS recent should be reported quarterly at both the facility and community levels. This diagram illustrates the relationship between HTS recent and HTS TST. When clients arrive at a facility or community site where testing services are provided, they will first receive HIV diagnostic testing. Individuals who are newly diagnosed with HIV according to the national algorithm and are age 15 or older will be offered the test for recent infection. Based on the recent infection test results, these individuals will be classified as having a recent or long-term infection. Please note that only individuals who are newly diagnosed HIV positive should be tested for recent infection. Individuals who have been diagnosed HIV positive and are retesting, or persons who are on ART should not receive testing for recent infection. Each country may use different methods for determining who is truly newly diagnosed HIV positive, such as additional post-test counseling to discuss prior diagnosis or ART history, review of registers to check whether a client is a silent transfer, and viral load testing to help eliminate those who are recent and are on ART and thus virally suppressed. Section 2, indicator changes in MER 2.3. This is a new indicator that will be reported for the first time in F119 Quarter 1. OGAC recommends incorporation of the rapid test for recent infection for surveillance as soon as possible in 14 standard process countries, with testing in place by F119 Quarter 1. These countries are Botswana, Cote d'Ivoire, Eswatini, Ethiopia, Haiti, Kenya, Lesotho, Malawi, Namibia, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. In addition to these 14 countries, other countries may also implement testing for recent infection and report this indicator. Reporting of the number and percentage of recent infections among newly diagnosed PL-HIV by facilities and communities where testing is performed allows for the determination of geographic areas and subpopulations with ongoing HIV transmission to inform programmatic response. Section 3, review of numerator, denominator, and disaggregation. This indicator is defined as the percentage of persons aged 15 and above newly diagnosed with HIV-1 infection who have a test for recent infection result of recent infection during the reporting period. The numerator is the number of newly diagnosed HIV-positive persons aged 15 and above with a test for recent infection result of recent infection during the last quarter, and the denominator is the number of newly diagnosed HIV-positive persons aged 15 and above with a test for recent infection result during the last quarter. Please note that if guidelines specify that viral load testing be conducted alongside the rapid test for recent infection as part of a recent infection testing algorithm known as RITA, then the numerator must use RITA results and the denominator must reflect completion of the RITA. RITA is a combination of laboratory tests and laboratory and clinical information used to classify an HIV infection as recent or long-term. Viral load testing should be incorporated into the RITA at sites with ready access to viral load testing or sample referral networks, but is not required at sites that do not have this infrastructure in place. Under the RITA, persons who test recent on the rapid test for recent infections should have a blood specimen collected for viral load testing. If the viral load is greater than or equal to 1,000 copies per milliliter, then the case will be considered a confirmed numerator, and the denominator are as follows. One is pregnant and indication. The second is age, sex, and indication. An optional disaggregation for the numerator and denominator is by key population. I will describe the disaggregation in more detail on the following slide. For required disaggregates, indication refers to the testing method. Disaggregates for indication are assay, RITA, and not documented. Assay means that the test is based solely on a rapid test for recent infection. RITA means that the result is based on the recent infection testing algorithm as defined by country guidelines, which may include a viral load testing. And not documented means that the method was not documented in the data source used for reporting. Pregnant refers to client's pregnancy status at the time when the test for recent infection was conducted, not at the time of reporting. Age refers to the client's age in years at a time when test for recent infection was conducted, using define our age groups. Lastly, sex refers to the client's sex. For optional disaggregates, key population refers to people who inject drugs, men who have sex with men, transgender people, female sex workers, and people in prison and other closed settings. Please refer to the key population classification document for additional information. How to count HTS recent. Data for this indicator should be reported at all facilities and communities that provide testing for recent infection. This indicator should be reported alongside HTS, TST at facilities and communities where tests for recent infection have been incorporated as a supplemental test in addition to the country-approved HIV diagnostic testing algorithm. If a facility or community refers specimens to a hub site, such as a referral laboratory for testing for recent infection or viral load testing as part of the RITA, then the indicator should be reported by the facility or community where specimens were collected. Data for this indicator are collected and reported regardless of whether or not test results have been returned to the client. Data sources for this indicator include case-based surveillance systems, electronic medical records, registers, logbooks, reporting forms, and other data collection tools used for recent infection surveillance. Annual totals are calculated by summing quarterly numbers for both the numerator and the denominator. How to use HTS recent. This indicator may be used for surveillance, programmatic response, incidence estimation, and implementation monitoring. For surveillance, the determination of percentage of recent infection among newly diagnosed PL-HIV will enable countries to identify geographic areas and subpopulations with ongoing transmission and monitor epidemic trends over time. For programmatic response, the identification of areas and subpopulations with ongoing transmission will allow countries to fine-tune their programmatic response by targeting education, prevention, and testing resources to increase case finding and interrupt transmission. For incidence estimation, while tests for recent infection among newly diagnosed PL-HIV are not currently being used to estimate population-level incidence, a proxy measure of annual incidence among HTS clients aged 15 or older may be calculated and serve as a standardized indicator for monitoring epidemiologic impact of programs over time. For implementation monitoring, the denominator may be used to monitor the rollout and coverage of testing for recent infection. This diagram shows the cascade for recent infection in relation to HTS, TST. We start with the number of individuals aged 15 and above who received HIV testing services and received their results. This is reflected in the first bar. Of those, a proportion will receive a positive HIV test result. This is reflected in the second bar of HTS, TST pause for those who are 15 and older. These individuals should be tested for recent infection as captured by the HTS recent denominator. It is important to note that the test for recent infection should only be done for newly diagnosed PL-HIV, not everyone testing positive for HIV, and thus this bar may be a little lower. Lastly, of those with recent infection test results, some individuals will have a result of recent infection captured by the HTS recent numerator. HTS recent and this disaggregation should also be triangulated with HTS-TST disaggregations and other indicators such as PMTCD stat, PAUS, and TXNU. Section 4, Overview of Guiding Narrative Questions. Here are a few guiding narrative questions. For countries electing to use ARETA with viral load testing, please explain if HTS recent denominator does not reflect the implementation of tests for recent infection. For example, the denominator may be less than expected due to long turnaround time for viral load results. This information will help identify gaps and challenges in implementation. Next, please explain if HTS recent denominator does not equal HTS-TST pause for individuals age 15 and above. The goal is to test all newly diagnosed PL-HIV for recent infection at tests implementing this activity. However, newly diagnosed PL-HIV infected with HIV-2 who are not co-infected with HIV-1 should not be tested for recent infection. Section 5. Data quality considerations for reporting and analysis. Please consider the following data quality checks when reporting this indicator. The number of persons with a test for recent infection result should be less than or equal to the number of persons aged 15 and above who receive HIV testing services and receive a positive result. Secondly, the number of persons with a test for recent infection results should be greater than or equal to the number of persons with a result of recent infection. Finally, the number of persons with a test for recent infection results should be equal to the sum of each individual aggregate groups. This also applies to the numerator and will be calculated automatically in Datum. Section 6, Additional Resources and Acknowledgement. Here are a few additional resources. Please refer to the PEPFAR guidance on recent infection testing, the generic protocol on establishing recent infection surveillance, and the emerging technology page on pepfarsolutions.org. This concludes the training video on HTS recent. Many thanks to the support and contributions of the ECT short-term task team on recent infection surveillance. And thank you all for listening. Please reach out to your points of contact if you have any questions.